Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Tonight, guys, I want to take you through the part 3 for Introduction to Python Programming. Ladies and gentlemen, in part 1, we went through what is Python. We went through how to install Anaconda Navigator in order to use a Jupyter notebook, which is an IDE for Python, and also how to deal with the print statements, how to, like, the introduction to variables, the data types being the strings, integers, float, and the data structures, where we went through the list, we went through the dictionary, and we went through the tuples. And also we spoke about an input function. We went through an input function, and we also went through the data structures in terms of the functions, where we used the function called len, which is used to count the number of elements in a list. And we went through the function append, which was used to add an element into a list. We used the function remove, which is used to remove an element in the list. We also went through the pop, which is used to remove an element by looking at its position, insert, extend, which is used to concatenate the list or to join the list. And also we went through the slicing of list by indexing. And this is what we actually went through. Then now again in part 2, we looked at the operations, arithmetic operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and others, comparison operators, assignment operators, and the logical operators. And we went through the conditional statements, where we use if statements, if else statement, if elif statements. And we went through the functions and how to actually use the range function. This is what we actually went through. But now, ladies and gentlemen, in part 3, I want us to talk more about strings, which is another type or another data types which we spoke about earlier. Then now, under strings, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to focus on how to actually concatenate, or how to join, or how to merge a string, or actually how to merge strings, and how to multiply strings, and how to access strings element by indexing, and also how to actually use something called an F strings. So let me just explain one by one. We know that in Python, whatever it is a string, it should be represented in a quotation mark. For example, if we say, let's call it, okay, let me just call it string 1, or yeah, let me just call it a string. And this string, let's give it a name. Let's just say, it's just an example. Let's just say ambigua. This is a string. So if we run this, let's try to run this. If we run this, we wanted to check the type of this data. I think I went through this earlier. Type, which is type of the string, then it will tell us that this is a string, right? It shows that is a string because it is in a quotation mark. But without having to put this, if we don't put this and we run, then Python will come to an error. It will show an error which says that this is not defined as a Python. You see, it says that ambigua is not defined. You see, it does not know whether it's a numerical or it's a string. But if you want to represent as a string, that it must always be in a quotation mark. By so doing, then Python will be able to recognize it. All right, this is an example of a string. But now the first is, how do we actually concatenate, or how do we join or concatenate strings? How do we concatenate strings? For example, let's call it, let me just call the first one that I have done. Let's call this string 1. Let's call this string 1. And the second one, or let me just say string 2. And let's call this string 1. string 1 and string 2. Then let's say I wanted to combine this. Let's say ambigua. Okay, let's just use a different. Okay, let's just say we're talking about kangaroo. Then here we talk about maths and science Okay, maths and science. Then let's come with the third one. 3. Then let's call this academy, maths and science academy. So if we do this, let's say we want to combine this. So the best way to actually concatenate strings is to use a plus. The plus is just a symbol that is used to concatenate strings. So actually, if I say, let's call this str, and we say string 1 plus string 2 plus string 3. Let's do the running and try to print this. Let's call this print the string. So let's run this. You see, it says string 1 not defined, because it did not call it. So let's call it. You see, it says it's showing that it's Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy. What if I want this to leave a space in between? So if maybe I wanted a Kangaroo and a space, Maths and Science, a space and Academy. So it means to do that, I have to create something like this. Okay, let me try to leave a space in this form and check what's going to happen here. So you see, it does not show anything. But if I say in this quotation, so let me put a plus here, then with an empty string here. So let's try to add this. You see, it does not create any empty string there. But let's say I do this. Okay, I separate them. Then you see that it has already, it's creating a space. So it means by so doing, it means I'm creating a white space between the two. For example, if I wanted to create a white space between these two, it means I'll have to also do this. Then leave this represent in Python, this represent a white space. So it will leave a space in between. You see, Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy. But if I don't want to leave a space in between, it means I just have to leave it like this. So it will not leave any space in between. So let's try to run this. So it will just say Maths Science Academy. So this is the function that we use to actually concatenate or join multiple strings. So it means in a string, we can be able to concatenate that. And again, we can be able to, I just want to talk about this. We can be able to actually do the multiplication of the strings. Like, for example, let's say, let's call it the first one. Let's say it's just an example. Let's call it string multiplications. Okay, for example, I have, let's call this string 1. Maybe I'm calling it, okay, this is my string. So if I say string 1 multiplied by 5, it means it will generate that asterisk 5 times. So it is multiplied by 5. So let's do the running. You see what it has done? It has truncated this string 5 times. So if I say 10 times, then it can do that. It can do that. So it depends with how many times. 20 times, it can still print that. So 30 times, it can still print that. So it means we can perform what is called the string multiplication. We can perform the string multiplication. We can do that. For example, if I say I want this Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy to appear like 3 times. So I'll say multiply by 3, then you'll see what it will happen. It will say Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy, Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy in that format. But now let's say we want it once, then this is what it will print out. So we can do the concatenating, we can also do the multiplication, and also we can access strings element by indexing. For example, before I start to do with this, like to talk about the string element, let's use the len function. How to use the len function on strings? You can still count the number of strings that are in like to count the length of the string. For example, if I say string 1, remember the string 1 is kangaroo. If I say the length of the string 1, kangaroo, the length of the string 1, kangaroo, it says these are 8. So it's 2, 4, 6, 8. But if I happen to leave a space, let me say I leave a space here. Python also count these spaces. Python also count the space. So if I say the length of this, it will say 16. Why 16? Because it has counted the space between the R and the double O. So it also counting that space. So it's very important to be able to understand that. And if we do away with this, then it will say now there are many, there are 8 characters in that string. So it means a len function can be also used in a string. And also we can access multiple characters in a string. So accessing elements in a string or alphabet in a string. For example, if you say, remember earlier I said Python in terms of the indexing, if we have a string like this, if we say this is a string in terms like kangaroo, it is our kangaroo, it is a string. So what does it takes this as a string in position 0. So it's 0, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, or -1, -2. It index like the way we're indexing the list. So if I say string 1 with, let's say, 0, what will it print? It will only show the K. It will show the K. But if I say what will be the last one, so -1, it will show the O. You do understand? But if I say we can also do the slicing, maybe from 0 up until 5. Obvious, if it's from 0 up until 5, it means it will truncate from 0 up until 4. So it will show the kanga only. So let's do the running. You see, I remember the way we were slicing the list. Data structure is the same way we can do it in this way. But how about if we wanted to replace a letter? For example, let's say I'm saying string at position 0 should be equals to, let's say I wanted to use H and try to check what would happen. So it says string does not support any item assignment. It means you cannot mutate a string. You cannot change the letters in the string unless if we do this. Let's say we say string dot replace. Let's try to do this. Replace, let's say we replace K, this is an example, with H. I want to see something. So we wanted to replace the K with the H. Let's check. It says, oh, okay, no, it means I've done a mistake here. Okay, let's do the running. So you see now it has replaced. So it means the only way you can change items or characters in a string is to use a replace function. You see that I've replaced the K with H. So, but if I turn again, it means it will just be like this. So this is what you need to know. So it's now kangaroo. it's now kangaroo. So now you can see that we can still do the slicing. We can access strings by looking at the indexes. We can access string by looking at the indexes, and this is very, 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 very important. And again, one must be able to use something called this f-string operation. I think I've already used it in the previous video. F-string operations. Right, let's say as an example, I wanted to do one example of the f-string. Let's call this example 1. But here I don't want to use an f-string. Let's say we have, this string. Okay, I know the string 1 is ambiguous. So if I say print in a quotation mark, my name is then here I put what is this? String 1, then in a quotation mark again, and my surname is, then outside this I'm gonna put let's say, okay, let's just say let's say maybe I want to say my project name. My project name is okay, my project name is, let's just call this as, I wanted to use the string, I wanted to mention Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy, but this time around I wanted it to leave a space in between, but it's fine. But let's just try to leave a space in between. Right, quotation mark with the space, and also this side. Right, with the space there. Let's try to run this. So it says Maths Science, Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy. Right, let me now run this. If I run this, then it will say my project name is Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy. This is the name of the project. But if I wanted to use an f-string, it means in terms of an f-string, ladies and gentlemen, it means the f-string include the calling function to be inside the print, but inside the quotation mark. And to include that means we're going to use the function print. Inside this, we use something called f-string. F-string with the quotation mark. Then I'm going to say my project name is, then inside the curly brackets, then I have to put that string function. Then I have to run. But you do this only when you have used the f string. So you see, it says the project name is Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy. So they work the same. So either you use this or use, but this one is referred as an f string. So here you are using an f string function or operator, which work exactly as that other one. So I think this is the convenient way of making printout. So it's very important for one to be able to know the f string operator. Then again, one must be able to talk about the length function. It's find the length of the string. I think we've already done that. For example, if I say what will be the length of this, obviously, if you look at this, the length of this, because of the spaces in between, Python also count these spaces there. So it means you're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8. Kangaroo has 8 characters, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, approximately 30 characters. So if we say what is the length of that string, the length of the string And then let's do the print out. You see, it says 30. Why 30? Because it's counting even those spaces, those white spaces in between, also counted. But if there were not those spaces, then it was not going to include them. It's very, very important for you to be able to deal with strings. And again, ladies and gentlemen, one must be able to understand what, like the function called upper. Upper is to convert the string to an uppercase. For example, if we say, if I say string dot upper, let's check. You see it has converted the kangaroo maths and science as an uppercase, So it's very, very, very important to understand that. Then again, we can also use what you call the lower, let's say convert or change the string characters to an uppercase format. So we've done that. How about if I wanted to change it to a lower? It means it will be same information, but this time around it will be lower case than the lower. So we use the lower to actually change or to convert the string characters into a lowercase format. So into a lowercase format, let's do that. You see, it's now in a lowercase format. So these are the things that are very, 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 very important. What if, for example, I wanted actually to change the first one? Let's say in terms of this. Let's say, as an example, I want to check something. Let's say instead of converting all of this, I just want to convert the first one. Okay, let me try something. I want to check something. String dot upper. I've never tried this, but I want to check something. Upper, then let's say, oh, okay. Now it means I have to select to say the first one. Let's say the first one. Say number one. No, the last case. Okay, let's say I want to change the first one. Okay, let me just call this string. I want to check something. Then let's run this. Then let's do the printing. Let's say string. I want to check something. You see, oh, okay, it has just changed it has just changed the first one, but it print it only. Okay, let's say I'm using it here. I want to check something. Let's say, I don't know if it will work. Okay, let's check something. It says not given. Okay, fine. So which means it's failing. It's failing to do that. It's failing to do that. Okay, fine. So it means this is the function to convert a string into an upper characters. Okay, it means I must run this again. Let's start to run it from here, from there, so that I can be able to call this lower than upper. Okay, and then now another function is to be able to use what you call a replace. It's used to replace a substring inside a string. So let's say, for example, if you look at this string here, we wanted to use a replace function in a string. Right, how to use this? Okay, fine. You can say string dot replace. Okay, it means I think I've used it already. Let's say I wanted to replace this end here with just a space. So I'll just say replace the end, then I have to put the end here. Then we replace this with, so it means you select the character that you want to replace, then you now put what you want to replace with. Let's say we just want to replace it with an empty space, just an empty space. Then let's run. You see that it has replaced that with an empty space. It has replaced that with an empty space. So this is another function that we can use to replace. But now what if I wanted to say replace this with nothing but with no space? So let's do the run. You see that we just replaced Kangaroo Maths and Science Academy, but with the what? With just with nothing. For example, let's check if we were to replace like using list, maybe putting list inside, let's say listing, maybe I wanted to replace this and also the white spaces. Okay, let's say with the white spaces. I don't know if I have done it too much. So you see, I've created a list of items that I wanted to replace then I have to say I want to replace it with just empty space. So let's do the running and check. It says replace argument one must be a string, not a list. So it means it does not accept replace. So it's either we have to replace one at a time. So without putting inside a list, so it means it does not require a list. So let's say we replace this with that. And secondly, let's say I wanted to replace these white spaces. So I'll just do the copying again. And now I'm going to replace that. So, okay. Now I wanted to replace those white spaces. Just, you see, I've created a space in between. Then I replace with nothing. So I want this Kangaroo Maths and Science to have no space anymore. You see, it's no longer having a space. It's no longer having a space. So this is another function that we can use, a replace function, Very, very, very important. Then another one, it is the issue of splitting. We can split the string from left by a specific separator. For example, let's say we have something like this. Let me copy this, that process of concatenating. Then we try to concatenate this. But this concatenation, I wanted to add something. Let's say now here there is an asterisk. Let's say there's an asterisk here. And even here there is also an asterisk. This is an example. Then let's say we concatenate this. You see that we have concatenated this, but there is an asterisk in between. So what I can do, I can say, I want to split this string.split, but I'm splitting this with a character. What is my separator? I'm splitting with this character. I wanted to split it to this. But if I just say split, then I just leave it like this. Let's do the running. You see that it has created a list. It has created a list of strings, but which are separated by this asterisk. But what if I wanted to separate for the first time, not twice or second? So it means I have to say, to specify a number to say, if I put one, it means it will separate that for the first time, not second, but for the first time. You see that it has only separated the first one with an asterisk, but not in the second. So that is what you need to know. Again, we can say we wanted to separate this with that asterisk and also at the same time with that white space which was there. Remember, I've created a space here. So what Python will do, it will separate those things with, you see, it will separate the strings with what an asterisk and also a white space. So now, but if I do not select it, how many times should it do the separation? So if I don't put anything there, then I just do the running. So it means now what it will do, it will just, okay, you see what it will do. It will not do anything because it does not see any white spaces of this form. But if we come it close and say, okay, you see now it is separated because there are spaces, but just smaller ones. So now it means if we do this, let's say running, then now do the splitting. You see, it will split the data into a multiple list. So these are the things that you need to be able to understand when you are dealing with strings. So already we went through how to concatenate by using a plus, multiply strings, accessing strings element by indexing, using an F string, counting the length of the string, converting a string into an uppercase, lowercase, replacing a substring, and also splitting the string by from left. And then now these are the things that you need to be able to understand. But if there's still another one that is called R split. So, but with an R split, it will split the characters from right. So an R split, it means this will do the splitting, but starting from right. It will do start from right, not from left like this. So the only difference with this one is it's separating from left. This one is separating from right, which is called an R split. So it's another function. Remember, you can also go to Google and say Python string split, then to be able to explain to you. So this is very, very, very important. Okay, let's now proceed with the loops. Right, under Python, there are two types of loops. We have what you call a while loop and a for loop. Right, in terms of the while loop allows the general repetition based upon the repeated testing of a Boolean condition. So in other words, when you are dealing with a while loop, this one allows a function to keep on repeating based on a condition that is holding true. As long as it holds true, then it will keep on performing the task. Right, usually when we are dealing with a while loop as a syntax, the while loop require you to have what you call the initialization. You need to start with, you have to initialize first. Then after that, you start writing the while loop with the condition. But this condition should be a Boolean condition. Then from there, you must have what you call an increment. There should be an increment or decrement based on the situation. But however, for now, I wanted us to start with the for loop. A for loop provides convenient iteration of values from a defined series, such as when we have a character of strings, we have an element of list, or we have a number within a range. Let's say, as an example, we want to print the following. I want to give one simple example. We want to print the following. Let's say we have a function. I'll just give one example here. And our function is given by the following. Okay, let's say we have the function is Tn. Okay, it's Tn equals to n squared, where n is a number greater than or equals to 1, which means when n is 1, then 1 squared will give us 1. When n is 2, 2 squared will give us 4. N is 3, 3 squared, this will be 9. Just like that, 4 squared is 16, 5 is 25, 6, 36, 7 is 49, 9 it's 81. Let's say we want to stop at 81. So when n is roughly around 9. So to do this, it means we have to say, okay, to keep on, like, to avoid keeping on changing the values, what you can do, you can say, okay, fine. If you wanted to use the for loop, let's start with the for loop. We're going to say, okay, fine. Let's first create a list of numbers from 1 to 9. And to do that means you have to use what you call the range function, a range function. Okay, let me just say import numpy as np. We'll talk about this. So now within this, then we're going to say the np dot a range. So I want to range numbers from 1 up until 10 with a step size of 1. But even if I don't put this, it will increment, it will make an increment from 1 up until 9. So let's run this. You see, this is the list now of numbers from 1 up until 9. Then from here, we're gonna say, I'm gonna say it's a follow for any number, it depends, for any number in this list. So any number that is inside this list, then it means what it will do, it will say when n equals to 1, when n equals to 2, when n, and so on. What is it that you want to do? You want a value. Okay, want this value to be like, we want to ask this to give us n squared, which means the number now, or should I say for n in this, then it means the n should be to the power of 2. Then I will have to print the values. I will have to print the value. But however, can I just create this maybe to be in the form of a list? So let me create an empty list here to say, this is created an empty list. So I need to store these values. I need to store the values that I'm going to compute here in that list. So to do that, I'm going to say list.append. Append what? I'm appending those values into the list. Then from there, then I have to print the list. So it means this is just the code append, or to add, to append the values into the list. Then this one is to calculate the square of the number. It's just the formula actually. So let's run this. So, okay, no, it's fine. Let me just put it there. So it means you're gonna have something like this. Then now you see that it has computed 149 up until 81. So we can even use this. Let's say we wanted to use this to, let's say, in the form of a string, in the form of strings. Let's say in the form of strings, we want to actually do this. Maybe we want to say, okay, fine, we have like this kind of a pattern. One string, then now there are two, now there are three, now it's 4 of them, and so on. So it means if you want to do that, you're gonna say, okay, fine. If we do not want to put that as a list, so it means we're gonna say, yeah, it's okay, we can put that as a list, but we have to say, let's create a string. So say, let's call this string, this is our string. So for any n that is inside this, then a value should be the n multiplied by, actually, let me say the string multiplied by then the n multiplied by the n. So it means you want to keep on increasing this. Then from here, because if I run this, it will only append, you see, it will append the last one. So let's say I wanted it to append like to show all of them. Okay, then you're gonna have something like this, you see, but now it's showing as a list. Let's say I don't want it to show as a list, so we can do away with this appending. And then, so let's say we wanted to say print those values. So it means, let me do away with the string and let's run this. You see, it's printing like it's printing that. So, but now, okay, let me do this. So it's also printing the same result. Then, okay. Dot center, I wanted to check something. Check something. It says string object has no attribute center. Okay. Let's do this. Let's say I'm adding, let's say up until 20. Let's check. You see, it's iterating the pattern. So we can even do this. So I've done this almost 20 times. So this is another way of dealing with a for loop. So this is another way of dealing with a full. So I did not want to include to use this strings. So it's another way of dealing with the for loops. And then I can even change this. I can even change this. Let's say I wanted to change this and say kangaroo. Okay, let's say but it will still iterate this, but several times. You see, comes several times. So let's say I'm putting stars followed by hash. So it will be star hash, star hash, star hash, star hash, which is fine. It's just the pattern that we actually chose. So do you see how important are the for loops? Then now let's talk about the context of the while loop. The while loop, first of all, we need to come up with what we call we need to initialize. The question is, where are we? Do we want to start with n equals to 1? So let's say we initialize to say, let's say n equals to 1. Then, but after initializing, then I'm going to say, let's also include the issue of the range to the A range part. So to create a list of numbers that are between 0 and 9. So let me put it there. Let me call it the list. It's the list values there. And then I'm going to say while the n is less than, okay, let me say the length of this list, while n is less than the length of the list. So that means it's less than 9. So now this must make an increment, but the way it's going to make an increment is that we must say n is equals to n plus 1. So it means it might keep on writing that. So let's say, as an example, I'll say, so it will just, let's say I wanted to print the n number. Let's say print n. So let's do the running. You see, it's printing 1 up until 8. So now, what if I don't want this? I want it to print the 1 squared. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna simplify. And we're gonna say if, so it's not gonna say for I in this list, in a list provided there. For I in a list provided there, I equals to, okay, let's say the value equals to the I to the power of 2. Then I want to print this value of I for n equals to 1. Let's do the running and check. You see, this is the answer, but it says 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. That up until, you see, now it's keeping on writing this. So to avoid this, it means we can say let's just copy this and put it here so that it can be able, okay, fine. Let's check something here. Let's do the running. So it keeps on printing lot and lot of numbers. Okay, fine. Let's do this. Let's say now, instead of doing this, we'd say for I in a list, then, okay, it means this should be written here. So let's write this condition here and check what is the result. Yes, yes. So you see now we said we want this to truncate the values from, like, for I that is inside the list. So you see now I've used the while loop and also the for loop inside, so that it can be printed, it can be able, so we can also create, make a list to say list new, create an empty list if you don't want to, so that we can append. So I'll just say the list new dot append these values. Then after appending the values, then it prints them. Okay, let you see, but now it's not appending. List new, creating a list new. Okay, so it means I have to do this. Place it there. Okay, let's check. Indentation, okay. Okay, so which means it's not supposed. We're not supposed to do the listing. It's fine. Let's just do this. Okay. Wait, check. So you see, it's printing the last word. So let me talk about this. This is just an increment part that is on the loop. Increment, and this is, it uses a for loop. This is a for loop inside the while loop. So this is the initialization of the initialization. The starting point to say, oof, starting point will be 1. So it means for any value of n that is less than the list, then now we need to iterate. But now we calculate, we say for any I that is inside this list here, 1, 2, up until 9, we have to calculate the, like if I is to 1, then I1 squared will be 1. So that's why when we print it, gives us 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, and 81. So you see that is still giving us the same answer as in this one. And we can also do the same for when we want to print the strings. So it means we're gonna say here, it means here, in order to use the for loop, we'll say for n that is inside this, then here the only difference is that we are not saying, so it means this will be the string times by the I, the number of times that we want to iterate. You see, it shows that we still have the same output. So it means if we change this, maybe we make it to be 20, so 20, it will still give us the same result. So you see how important are the loops, particularly the for loops. So you can be able to use this when you are given, like when you want to do iterations, multiple iterations. So it's best to use a for loop. So it's 4, 9, 4, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, and the last one is 81. So this is one example of a loop. So we went through the for loops, we went through the while loop, we also went through the strings operation. We have seen how to concatenate strings, how to multiply strings, how to access strings element by indexing, how to use an F strings, and so forth. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'll stop here. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell button for future video notification. Bye-bye.